Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for part 5 of Keep a True Lent. We are in chapter 6 of this wonderful book. This chapter is entitled Courage. So we'll begin with a little fun fill in the blank quiz. We're just doing this for fun. Even if you've read the book, I don't expect you to remember this exact sentence. All things are possible to us, only we must believe. Believe what? We must believe in dun 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 dun. Dun. We must believe in. Here's the answer. All things are possible to us, only we must believe. Believe what? We must believe in ourselves, in this innate spiritual man in us, and we must encourage him. So when Charles Filmore was saying these kinds of things, uh, most of his audience would have filled in the blank, we must believe in God, or we must believe in the Bible. So he was really going against tradition and going against the flow when he taught people that they must believe in themselves. So, of course, today we have our challenges as well, but in his day, it was traditional Christianity because all of his audience had been steeped in the idea you are dust, a worm, born in sin, and damned. That was the message they had all taught, and it was startling to them to hear him say, you must believe in yourself. Remember that the traditional idea of prayer was to send a request up to the old white guy in the sky, and he would perform some miracle, maybe a minor miracle, but he would make things happen the way you had requested, or not. He was teaching that there is only one presence and one power in the universe, and that therefore there is no spot where God is not, that we cannot be separated from God, but in fact, uh, we are always in God's presence, and not only that, that God has individualized itself within us, that each one of us is God individualized. Uh, Beautifully put in this quote I ran into during my research this week. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. Yeah, it's mind-boggling, but it is truth. But today, it's not so much traditional Christianity, which is still, going strong, but it isn't anything like the cultural influence that it was in his day. Today, it's another, I would say, even larger problem is materialism. And materialism is now what we are trying uh, to counteract. Uh, Charles Filmore called it sense consciousness. The idea that all that exists is what we can detect with our senses and with the instruments that we have created to assist our senses. That with the understanding of evolution, we know that we are all just meat-eating plains apes. And consequently, there is a certain philosophy of life Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. We have all kinds of evidence of this, like the meme that says, life is a bitch, and then you die. And here's another meme that's meant to be funny. This was a license plate you would see for a while, a few years back. He who dies with the most toys wins. So, with this as our opponent, with this mentality as our adversary, we face the world with conviction of faith. So here's another fun fill-in. See if you can guess what goes in this blank. We have not realized what a wonderful teaching we have. It is filled with possibilities, and these possibilities are made known to us in what and what? How do we know the marvels of our teaching? Where does it come from? We have not realized what a wonderful teaching we have. It is filled with possibilities, and these possibilities are made known to us in mind and spirit. Mind and spirit. This is our source. Mind and spirit is our source. And this is the last of my fun fill-ins. The scientific world is also beginning to recognize the fact that man has within himself the capacity to what? The world about him. What word would he have chosen to put in that sentence? Reform. Not reform, but form again. The scientific world is also beginning to recognize the fact that man has within himself the capacity to reform the world about him. Now I'm going to draw all this together. Trust me. Just stick with me, please. Charles Filmore was not familiar with quantum mechanics because those theories just began to emerge in the 1920s. And I have spent several talks on quantum mechanics as it pertains to spirituality. And I'm not going to go into any of that right now, but I am going to just give you the two most relevant findings of quantum mechanics. That human consciousness affects the activity of electrons. And the unified field theory. This is a totally new theory, totally outside the bounds of Newtonian mechanics, that says all matter and energy are one, interconnected without regard to distance. Now, without knowing anything about quantum mechanics, because it had not, the theory had not been tested and was brand fresh way towards the end of Charles Filmore's life. Nevertheless, he wrote in this book, with every thought we think there is a movement of active forces, not only a movement of those forces, but a movement of everything connected with our consciousness, our body, our world. Every time we speak, we cause the atoms and cells of our body to tremble and go through certain stages. Not only do we cause the cells and atoms of our body to form new adjustments, but we even affect the cells of the bodies of those with whom we associate. What the heck? I wonder what in the world people thought way back at the turn of the century when they read things like this, written by Charles Filmore. Every time we speak, the atoms and cells of our bodies affect the cells of the bodies of those with whom we associate. Well, in the 1990s, there came to light a new form of meditation based on science that I have also spent a lot of time talking to you about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it now, but it's heart math. That now that we have machines that can measure the electromagnetic field that is produced by the heart and by the brain, the famous EEG, we know that the heart creates an electromagnetic field that is much stronger than the electromagnetic field of the brain, and in fact, it entrains the brain so that if you can get your heart into coherence using breathing and mental techniques, which are very easy and which I teach in 5 minutes at the beginning of many meditation classes, very easy. Once you learn how to do that, then you can cause your electromagnetic field to expand. And not only does the heart entrain the brain, your electromagnetic field can entrain the electromagnetic field of those around you. And this is why group meditation is so powerful, because the person who achieves the most heart coherence in the group entrains those around him or her so that the entire group is lifted up towards the level of the most intense meditator. And here is a picture of Papa Charlie in his meditation chair. And the method that he taught for this using the power of the mind is first you decide on what your challenge, your issue, or your intention is. Then we open the door to the cosmic world. We unleash our own spiritual strength. We release our dependence on sense consciousness and turn instead to that which is within each and every one of us with affirmation, such as, "This problem has no power over me. I am a spiritual being." Simple as that. And then we do our meditation. During the meditation, you absolutely do not think about your challenge, issue, or intention. You don't need to keep repeating your affirmation. You just release. You just let your mind be still. Papa Charlie called it sitting in the silence, mental silence. In Buddhism, it's awareness. Just awareness, not thoughts. Not deciding what is right or best or how to solve a problem or how to create whatever it is you're desiring. None of that. Just let it all go. And then, either at some point in the meditation or more often, actually far more often, after the meditation is complete, inspiration or manifestation will occur. Either you will be guided or the problem will just miraculously solve. So I'm going to give you two examples of how this works in real life. The first one has to do with Charles Filmore back in the day when his movement needed to have its own name to distinguish it from other groups in the new world of new thought. A lot of groups had science in their name: Christian Science, Divine Science, Science of Mind. Uh, and Mary Baker Eddy, who founded Christian Science, she copyrighted their names, and she got very upset with any other group that tried to call itself Christian Science. So that was out. So he went into meditation, and now I don't know if he was meditating about this in if he if this was on his mind when he went into meditation in this instance. It may not have been. It was just one of the things that was floating around in the different things he had to deal with as he was growing his movement. But suddenly, in the midst of his meditation, his eyes flew open and he said out loud, "Unity! Our name is Unity." It just came to him out of the blue. He didn't have to figure it out. He didn't have to uh, do brainstorming or make a list of possible names. And of course, it isn't anything like Christian Science or Divine Science, any of those names. It's unique, and yet it expresses our fundamental belief. It's perfect. And the second example is something that just happened to me this week. I went to the doctor, and when I went to check in to get my clearance for my second eye surgery, the girl at the reception desk told me that there was an insurance problem. And I had actually received a letter from the insurance company, which I couldn't make heads nor tail of. My husband read it. He couldn't figure it out. I gave her the letter, and she couldn't figure it out. She took it to her supervisor. Supervisor couldn't figure it out. So they said, "We're not going to take your copay for this exam because you're not covered for insurance for this next operation." Now, I had been covered for the first operation of the left eye, but now there's some problem why I'm not covered for the left. So after a while, her supervisor came to me and she said, "Well, I talked to the doctor. I talked to your doctor. He doesn't know what this is about. I can't find anybody uh, from the insurance issuer to tell me what the problem is. Uh, so I'm just going to leave it up to you. You're just going to have to grapple with them until they tell us what the problem is so that we can solve it." So I went back to my seat with my insurance letter in my little medical file I carry around, and sat down and I went into meditation. And I just affirmed that whatever this issue was, it was going to be resolved for the benefit of all, for the benefit of the doctor, for the benefit of the insurance company, for the benefit of myself. I didn't try to figure it out. I didn't try to uh, imagine a specific kind of outcome. I just said, I just resolved this is going to be resolved to the benefit of all. So then it was time for me to see the doctor, and I sat down for the preliminary exams. And there was a very nice young man there, and he said, "Well, so you're all ready for your surgery?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm having a checkup on my old surgery today, but the preparation for my new surgery has been canceled because of this insurance issue." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. That's been resolved." And I said, "Well, who resolved it?" He said, "I don't know, somebody up in the business department." And I said, "Well, do you have a name?" He said, "No, just somebody up there. It's just resolved." Um, and so now I'm scheduled to have my surgery on May the 6th, and then I will have 2 bionic eyes with no insurance issues. Easy as that. Eric Butterworth wrote, and this has been compiled into his meditation on the Lord's Prayer. Uh, a beautiful sentence that has just stuck with me over the years. The presence in me is my deliverance, better than light, and safer than a known way. So this is his way of saying, if I'm lost, keep your flashlight, keep your map. Spirit will guide me. Spirit is better than light and safer than a known way. What faith! Wow. Isn't it wonderful to think of living that way? So, here again, just to summarize this little section: challenge, issue, or intention. Just form your intention or decide what the challenge is. Affirm divine guidance and the omnipresence of God. And affirm the Christ of your being, your true self. Then release it. Don't think about it. Don't ruminate on it. Don't try to figure it out. Get it out of your mind and just let your mind rest in the presence. And inspiration or the manifestation you seek will come, either then or at another time. However, what if your issue is a moral issue? What then? It's the same. It's exactly the same. Affirmation, meditation, which will be followed by inspiration or manifestation. And this is my segue into the next chapter, chapter 7 on conscience. We know that in Jesus' time, the people in his culture were all obeying the law of Moses. And the law of Moses covered every aspect of life, from the most minute little item of clothing all the way up to how to conduct a war. Diet, clothing, how to cut your hair, what was considered modest in dress, crime and what would be the punishment for any crime, marriage, divorce, procreation, what ceremonies to have and how to perform those ceremonies, the laws of war, and how to settle civil disputes. Everything was in there. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room. And there are many religions that are the same today, that are very strict about all of these things. But Jesus' teaching was quite different. Jesus' law was love God and love your neighbor. And he said, all the other rules and commandments are they just flow from these two. So here's my favorite cartoon character, Homer Simpson. I'm sure you love him as well. He's just a lovable guy. Now, what would you say the cartoonist was trying to express in that face, in this particular frame? What is the emotion that he is trying to portray? Well, it kind of looks to me like some kind of fear or worry, wouldn't you say? He looks worried. Well, here's the rest of that particular drawing. And so the artist is portraying a temptation, a moral dilemma. And I ask you to figure out the emotion first, because it's about fear. It's always about fear, these moral dilemmas. If you have a moral dilemma, you're experiencing fear. It's basically, I know the right decision, but that is not what I want. The thing about fear is about the future. Anxiety, worry, and stress. You either are afraid that something bad is going to happen, or you know something is going to happen, and you're afraid of how much suffering it will cause. Guilt, on the other hand, is the reverse. Guilt is fear about the past. Anxiety, worry, and stress caused by something that is already over with. Now, why would that be? Well, there's two reasons. Number one is fear of consequences. I spent all the grocery money on my Easter outfit, and now I'm worried about what my husband will say, for instance. So, fear of consequences. This is why the perpetrator always returns to the scene of the crime. He or she wants to assure themselves that they covered their tracks. Or it might not be exactly about consequences. It might be that because of something you did or failed to do in the past, you fear that your self-worth has been diminished. You fear that it means you are bad. You fear that what you did or failed to do reveals that you are unlovable, something along those lines. At any rate, guilt is about the past. So, whether it is fear about the future or guilt over the past, when we have a moral issue, the process is the same as what we just covered. Affirmation, meditation, inspiration, or manifestation. This is our process. Now, we started in the beginning of this lesson with Charles Filmore's statement that we must believe in ourselves. The leap of faith is to believe in yourself. How can I say this? Well, I've gone further than that, and I kind of made this joke that I am the Pope of my religion. Okay, you laugh at that. It is funny. But in fact, I say to you that you are the Pope of your religion. And that is true of whatever your faith may be. Isn't it true that if you choose to let the Bible be your guide, or the Quran, or the Book of Mormon, or the Course in Miracles, or the tenets of a particular faith, aren't you making a leap of faith in that book or that religion? So you are the Pope because you chose to be Catholic, or you chose to be a Muslim, or you chose to be a Mormon, or a Lutheran, or a Methodist, or a Buddhist. But it was your choice, and every day that you're in it, you choose to stay in it. So you and every person on the planet is the Pope of his or her religion. And extending that understanding even further, even for the atheist. The atheist takes a leap of faith in science. If you are sick, are you going to go to a traditional Western doctor, Are you going to pursue Chinese medicine? Or maybe you'll go to a chiropractor. They're all scientific. So we hear a lot today about trust the science. Well, it's really about having faith in a particular body of science, and there's more than one. So all of our lives, we are taking a leap of faith in something, and it always takes courage because you can't know everything. So you either trust in your own innate worthiness, or you trust in the Pope, or you trust in the Quran. But you got to trust in something. So that brings us back to this moment of truth when we have to make some kind of moral decision. So rather than going around in circles, and I've done this many times, in the, as they say, on the horns of a dilemma. If I do this, then it's wrong or it's right because of that. But then if I don't do it, then this other thing will happen. And you can spend hours chewing on a problem, stewing in your own juices, so to speak. But we don't need to do that because the answer is always within. The answer is always available to you because you are one with the omnipotent source, with the omniscient all-knowingness of God. That's your inheritance, that's your nature. So we say go within or go without. So I'm going to wind up this talk with one more little example from Charles Filmore's personal experience. This happened before he had any faith whatsoever. His wife had faith, and he was seeing the miraculous results of her faith, but he did not have faith. He began reading, and he read a lot of spiritual stuff. He still had no faith. So he said, okay, I'm going to stop reading. That's not doing it for me. I'm just going to sit in silence for an hour every night. And if there is a God, uh, that God will contact me. It was kind of a challenge. And so he did that, and after a while, he began to have dreams about his business. At that time, he was buying and selling real estate. He and Myrtle would go wherever there was a real estate boom, and he would do his magic in business, buying and selling real estate. And when the boom was over, they'd go to another boom place. And he began to notice that uh, when he was closing a deal, oh, I had a dream about closing this deal. And then he figured out, oh, these are prophetic dreams. So the next time he had a dream about a real estate deal, whether it was to buy or to sell, instead of deciding whether to buy or to sell based on his experience, and this, after all, was how he made his living. He'd been doing it for a while. He knew what to do, and looking at the market and looking at the property and, all of the machinations that a good real estate person would go through in order to decide what to do with a piece of property. He remembered his dream about it, and he followed the guidance of the dream. And he made money. So he started doing that all the time. He kept having dreams about real estate deals, and he would follow the guidance of the dream. And this was his first experience with spirit. Just opening himself in the silence, not even asking for any particular thing. Just, here I am, Lord. Here I am. Now, this is an interesting story, I know, but the most important and to me the most amazing part of it is I told you that after a while he started having prophetic dreams. Well, that while was 6 months. Here we have basically an atheist sitting in silence, in silent meditation. He called it the silence, but we today would call it meditation. 6 months before he got this result, which shows, things take time. Whatever part of your spiritual unfoldment you're working on, it's going to take some time. So we end with this affirmation from Eric Butterworth's writings. The presence in me is my deliverance, better than light and safer than a known way. Amen. So be it, and so it is. This is Nancy Willingham, inviting you to join us next week for part 6 of Keep a True Lent, which will be, the theme will be Easter from that wonderful book. And in the meantime, have a courageous week.